Excited to welcome back to the show, as always, Billy Embody, 247 Sports, to talk basketball recruiting before we get to football recruiting. That might be the first time we actually lead with basketball, Billy.
Yeah, but it's big news. The really top shot blocker in the country, Moussa Cisse, is kind of put his decision on hold amid everything that's been going on around the country. And he's somebody that a lot of people have had pegged to LSU, including myself. And it's going to be kind of a waiting game now until they feel comfortable to make that decision.
Do you have any idea when you think Musa Cisse will make that decision? Do you know a timetable, or is it just kind of up in the air just because of all the uncertainty right now?
It's kind of up in the air. I would still think that probably in the next 2 weeks, I would think that at some point they come to a point where they feel comfortable making their announcement and taking the next step in his career.
Do you still like LSU chances? I know that you mentioned that that's still the lead team for you. When you look at 247 Sports, 82% to LSU, 12% right now to the Memphis Tigers. Is it still LSU in the lead?
From what I've gathered, yes. I still feel pretty good about LSU landing Musa Cisse. And look, I mean, anytime a prospect takes a pause and has to take a step back, you kind of worry. But I like where LSU has been for a long time now. And I feel like they're still the lead school, and they've done a really good job recruiting him, and so they should be able to land him in the end.
LSU's basketball team, as far as the roster, is going to look so much different already with all the people they're bringing in because of signees and transfers. But if they can get Musa to sign, what does he do for LSU's basketball team to make an impact from day one?
I mean, he gives them something that they haven't had since Cavell Bigby Williams walked out the door, and that's an elite shot blocker, somebody that at 6'11", almost 7 foot, stands at the rim and is a huge defensive presence. He's a really elite rebounder as well, and so that allows maybe Trendon Watford, if he comes back, to slide to the 4, or Darius Days to play on the outside a little bit more. You know, Watford play on the outside a little bit more. They can just get even more creative with this lineup. And instead of playing Darius Days, and if Trendon Watford comes back, Trendon Watford in the middle, they've got an elite lottery pick type of player that they can just plug into the middle, and they can just do so many different things. And I mean, it helps everybody on the team.
Out of the names from LSU basketball that have put themselves in the NBA draft, who do you think stays in the draft? Who do you think comes back? Because obviously that changes the roster dynamic.
I think Darius Days is going to come back. I would think. I'd be surprised if he doesn't return. I think Emmett Williams is most definitely gone. And then Javonte Smart, I kind of lean towards him coming back. I think he's somebody that, being from Baton Rouge, that'll kind of be the draw, and he's pretty tight with, the team. I mean, from Darius Days to some of the other guys that have been around, he's pretty close with them, and I think he wants to make another run and then go from there and see where he wants to, end up. But Trendon Watford's the one that I think, might have kind of trended over to the stay in the draft. I heard the other day that some teams are telling him they could see him in the top 35 picks, but I do think he's just getting started with the process. He really hasn't had too many meetings with teams, and teams aren't really meeting with players just yet. So his process is just getting going. I think he's going to take it all the way until August. He's going to get as much information as he can on his, draft prospects, and then figure it out from there.
You mentioned LSU needing to add a little size, and they've been missing that over the last couple of seasons. What's the latest with Josh Gray from Connecticut?
I'm starting to kind of think that he might be watching Musa Cisse, and
yeah,
it's kind of rare in college basketball where you could see a commitment and then they back off. I mean, it's typically rare to see that. But I'll say this: Cortez Cooper was arrested for what seems to be kind of a minor thing in Chicago last week, but he's no longer on the roster, at least online. He's suspended indefinitely, so that could be a player that is, I think, headed down the road of not returning. And he's got that length, he's got that size. He just hasn't seen much time since arriving in Baton Rouge. So Josh Gray could kind of fill that role of maybe a second true big on the roster that could give Musa Cisse a blow if he was to, come out of the game and things like that if he ended up at LSU. So I think his situations could change, but I mean, the bright side is he's still committed. I don't think he's talking to any other schools right now, but I would imagine he's kind of got an eye on the roster and the situation.
If LSU was able to land Moussa Cisse, what would that do as far as their national rank? Right now, they've got a top 6 class in the country. Could this move them even farther up and maybe past Arizona?
Yeah, I think somewhere in that 3 to 4 range
Yeah.
is what we've kind of seen. So yeah, that could help them up back into that top 5. I think they were top 5 for a while, and that could give them kind of that elite class right alongside Kentucky.
Catching up with Billy Embody, 247 Sports. You can catch his work at go247.com. All right, since this is a top 6 class in the country, which one of these signees do you think could push someone who currently is on the team, played a lot last year, maybe out of their role, and they can take over in that role?
I'll go with a transfer, which I think might be cheating a little bit, but Josh LeBlanc is really, I mean, he's awesome. I remember watching him at Madison Prep. I remember watching him on the AAU circuit. I mean, he plays so hard. He is such an elite defender. He rebounds. He kind of reminds me of Darius days, but maybe a little bit more polished on the defensive side, whereas Darius is a little bit more offensively minded and gifted. So Josh, I think, is going to come in right away and compete at the 3, compete at the 4. I mean, he is just, if they would have had him this year, if just by happenstance, they probably would have won a couple more games just because of that rebounding and defensive presence that he provides.
Billy, it feels like LSU has done a fantastic job, Will Wade and the staff, of putting together a really good basketball team with not a lot of holes. Would you say if they do land Musa Cisse and they take care of having that length, close to the rim and the shot blocking, what would their hole be then? Or would this be just a really, really good basketball team?
I still think you wonder a little bit about the defensive issues they had last year. I know Will has talked about making a transition to a little bit more of a matchup zone and doing some different things to try and change that. But so I think defense is still, even though you have somebody in the middle in Musa Cisse, if he ends up at LSU, that he can block shots, he can affect shots and things like that, and kind of changes the paint situation. This was still a team that struggled defensively and struggled to defend the 3. And, a Musa Cisse isn't necessarily going to be out, defending or around the 3-point line. So the whole team has to continue to improve defensively in 3-point defense, especially. That's kind of my question mark, is how does this team look defensively?
All right, let's transition to football, and only Billy Embody can make that transition like he always does seamlessly. Let's go ahead and talk quarterbacks. Everybody wants to know about Caleb Williams, a quarterback out of Washington, D.C., and we've talked about it before, Billy. Would they continue to recruit quarterbacks? Because we know Garrett Nussmeier is already in this class. Caleb Williams, top quarterback in the country. Oklahoma is the heavy favorite here. Go ahead and just let LSU fans down a little gently, if you will.
This has been kind of a long time coming, so I don't necessarily think it's going to shock too many people. But I think right now the prevailing thought is that Oklahoma is going to end up with Caleb Williams, and he's expected to announce his decision on the 4th of July and have some fireworks on America's birthday. So the Sooners, I think, would be picking up an elite quarterback, a dual threat, but I think somebody that he's in the top 10 nationally overall. I think he's more of like a top 35, kind of a fringe 5-star when I really look at him in terms of just kind of some of his game. I just, there's some holes there. So not saying they wouldn't have loved to have landed Caleb Williams, he's an elite prospect, but just some food for thought there as you look at the quarterback dominoes continue to fall.
Somebody we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we had you on was Miller Moss. He has since committed to USC. And so some of these targets that LSU was kind of on the fringe of recruiting after they got Garrett Nussmeier, it seems like they have put all their chips in the Garrett Nussmeier pile there, and they're going to move forward with a 1-quarterback class. Is that the feeling that you get?
As of now, yes, I think so. And who knows, maybe somebody emerges late, as a senior, and they really like him, and they feel like that's the time to, get a second quarterback in this class. But keep an eye on tomorrow, because there's a big-time 2022 quarterback making his decision and announcing a commitment on Friday, and that's Walker Howard, the son of Jamie Howard, and he's a 4-star quarterback. He's a top 100 overall prospect. I think most of the signs point to LSU picking him up. And so, I mean, that would give you Garrett Nussmeier and then Walker Howard, who, think about this, he hasn't started a game yet at St. Thomas More over in Lafayette, but he's already the number 3 pro-style quarterback in the country. He's right on the fringe of being a top 50 overall prospect. I think over the next 2 years, he's got a chance to end up being a 5-star quarterback, and probably I'd be surprised if he didn't end up being the highest ranked quarterback in Louisiana history of 24/7 sports.
And this is someone we've heard about for a long time. And obviously with his dad, Jamie Howard, being a quarterback at LSU, that buzz maybe picked up before it normally would. But this is a guy, like you mentioned, he hasn't started a game, but we know about him. And there's some young quarterbacks coming up in the state of Louisiana. And Louisiana always has talent, Billy, but quarterback has been a position that is, slid down a little bit over the last couple of years. And it's coming up with a couple of prospects in the next upcoming classes.
Yeah, I mean, I was out watching Walker spin it a little bit after his workout on Monday, and, I mean, the ball just jumps out of his hand. He's played a lot behind Caleb Holstein, who signed with La Tech, and who's a really, really good quarterback at the high school level for St. Thomas More, and is now heading up to Ruston. But, I mean, he's got a lot of natural arm pop talent. He's a really good athlete, too. I mean, he's got a Vanderbilt commit in Jack Besh over there that he gets to throw passes to. But, I mean, honestly, they're probably neck and neck in terms of, athleticism. I mean, he's really, really got it all. And then you look ahead to 2023, and LSU offered Eli Holstein, who's another LSU legacy, and he's set to take over at Zachary this year. He's a 2023 prospect, and he's not the only one in Louisiana that's a lead in that class. And it's Arch Manning, Cooper Manning's son. And so the lineage there kind of speaks for itself as well. And he had a huge year at Newman as a freshman. So, yeah, this crop coming up is going to be pretty special.
All right, he is Billy Embody. Always love having him on. Go basketball, go football, can go all over the place. Billy, we appreciate it. Again, go 247.com is where you can find Billy's work. We appreciate you hopping on with us.
Anytime.